Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to answer a really common question that I hear from people all the time. Is it better to buy or rent an apartment in New York City? Now, one big issue that figures into this question is the emotional satisfaction that comes from owning. New York City is one of the most valuable real estate markets in the world, and nothing can beat the feeling of owning a piece of the Big Apple. But the percentage of renters in New York City is on the rise. Currently, New York City is about 2/3 renters, 1/3 owners. So obviously there's some very good reasons to forego that big purchase and just sign a lease and rent your home instead. So today I'm going to put those emotional factors aside and just strictly focus on the financial perspective. We'll run some numbers and figure out whether it's financially better for you to own or rent your home in New York City. Okay, before we get going, guys, just a reminder to press that subscribe button. Press that little button right there and press that bell so you get a notification every time I post a new video. I'm doing these videos once a week on the very basics of real estate and finance. I'm here to help you guys, and I'd appreciate your support. Okay, so when we're talking about the financial trade-offs of owning versus renting, we need to consider the costs and the benefits of each. Now, the cost of renting is fairly obvious. You have to pay your rent every month. You pay your rent, and in return, you get the benefit of having a place to live. It's fairly straightforward. So now when we start to do a cost-benefit analysis of owning, that's when it gets a little more complicated. So when you pay the cost of a purchase price on a property, you receive the benefit of a place to live, plus you receive an appreciable asset in the form of real estate. So you really have to evaluate two things. One, what are the unrecoverable costs of ownership? Paying rent is an unrecoverable cost. But a mortgage is not a completely unrecoverable cost because you're paying for an asset that you own. The unrecoverable costs of your mortgage payment are the interest portion, the homeowner's insurance, the taxes, and any maintenance you may be paying. But in addition to the unrecoverable costs of homeownership, you also have to consider the opportunity costs of investing in real estate. In a broad historical perspective, the return on a real estate investment is about 3% per year, whereas you could invest in something like the stock market and easily earn 6% a year. Are you confused yet? Stick with me. I really want you to understand the basics and how we've arrived at these numbers. This is an idea that economists and financial planners have thoroughly thought through, and they've actually come up with a formula. It's called the 5% rule. Basically, you take the purchase price of the property that you're considering purchasing, you divide it by 12, as in 12 months for the year, and multiply that times 5%. This becomes the economic equivalent of renting that property. If you can rent something equivalent to that property for less, it doesn't make sense financially to buy it. So let's do an example. Let's say you're considering buying a one-bedroom apartment in my favorite neighborhood in New York City, Long Island City. Now the purchase price on this apartment is going to be $850,000. $850,000 divided by 12 is $70,833. You multiply that by 5% and you get $3,541. So, if you could rent the same size and quality of apartment in Long Island City for under $3,541, then it does not make sense financially to purchase that apartment. Another term that economists use for this formula is the sunk cost rule. The sunk cost for owning that one bedroom in LIC is $3,541 a month. In other words, that's what you don't get back. Just keep in mind, this formula only works if that renter is taking the difference between what they're paying in rent and what they would be paying in a mortgage on the comparable apartment and investing that difference in the stock market to get that 6%. One of the main benefits of home ownership if you have a mortgage is that mortgage payments force you to pay into an appreciable asset on a monthly basis. It basically forces you to invest. If you're renting your apartment, you need to make sure that you invest elsewhere so you get that financial return in your favor. Another big consideration when you're deciding whether you should rent or own your apartment is how long are you planning on living there. You need to live there long enough to allow the value of the apartment to appreciate enough to pay for the cost of home ownership. Now this is different in different neighborhoods because different neighborhoods in New York City are appreciating at a different rate. The general rule of thumb is about 5 years. If you're not going to be staying there for at least 5 years, you should be thinking about renting. But the real estate listing platform StreetEasy has developed a tool called the tipping point tool that has an analysis on different neighborhoods, what kind of property you would be buying in that neighborhood, and how long it would take you to basically break even as a homeowner as opposed to a renter. I'm going to put a link to StreetEasy's tipping point tool in the description below. I find it to be a very useful tool if you're thinking about this subject. So I hope that sheds some light on the subject and helps you think a little more clearly and strategically about the difference between renting and owning a home in New York City. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, or you can always shoot me an email or just pick up the phone and give me a call. I'm happy to help. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.